9/11, 10/7, and Zoomers next on One Nation. Hello, America. Welcome to One Nation. I'm your host, Dr. Jake Jacobs. 1 year after the anniversary of the Muslim murder of almost 3,000 Americans on 9/11, 2001, the Islamic jihadi Osama bin Laden wrote an evil letter to America. Now, it was a 12-page diatribe, and in this letter, we see bin Laden's hatred of Israel and the Jews. He says inside the letter, the creation of Israel is a crime that must be erased. The Jews have no historical right to Palestine because Muslims conquered Palestine and drove out the Romans. This guy doesn't have a clue when it comes to history. Then he goes on to say that the Quran is the real Torah and that Islam is the real religion that must be spread around America, and America must adopt Islamic Sharia law, not democracy. Then bin Laden goes on and he repeats this anti-Semitic, this Jew-hating trope that America has been taken over by the Jews who run the economy and they control the media and now they control all aspects of your life. He then goes on to condemn American colonization and American capitalism, and he concludes the letter by saying this: "It is saddening to tell you that you are the worst civilization witnessed by the history of mankind." Now remember that. He uses the term worst civilization. Now, just a little while ago, back in mid-November, there was this TikTok user, had about 371 followers. She posted a video where she reads parts of this Obama's evil letter to America, where he justifies the killing of 3,000 Americans on September 11, 2001. Within a matter of a couple of days, a journalist by the name of Yashar Ali, he shared a compilation of the TikTok videos in the post on Twitter, now known as X. This post got up to 38 million views. By Thursday afternoon, TikTok realized that actually people were going like, this is great, this bin Laden is a great guy, so they had it banned. They even had the hashtag Letter to America that almost 20 million people saw, that many millions of the younger Generation Z, and millennials were saying this bin Laden is a pretty good guy. I just want you to take a listen to a few wokocrats loving bin Laden's evil letter. Here goes.
Reading this letter, it becomes apparent to me that the actions of 9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
The way this letter is going viral right now is giving me the greatest sense of relief. If you're Muslim and you've lived in the US since 9/11, you know more truth than the typical citizen. Now it's all coming to light because of Palestine.
I just read a letter to America, and I will never look at life the same. I will never look at this country the same.
I need you to stop what you're doing and go read A Letter to America. It is literally the craziest thing I've read in a while. And while I can't say that I'm that surprised, I am pretty shocked.
Those of you who know me know that I have been teaching in some form or fashion American history, world history, going back to 1977 when I was at Arizona State. And it was so important. I learned in undergraduate school and graduate school, I learned how important history was to understanding the good, the bad, and the ugly in America and in world history. But we have now with this younger generation just an absurd understanding, a misunderstanding, a poor understanding of reality, of the evil nature of Islam and what's happening in the world when it comes to the spreading of evil ideas. Let's just take a short listen to News Nation, where they discuss these Zoomers and millennials actually loving this letter to America from bin Laden, who murdered up to almost 3,000 Americans. Here goes.
I do think that there's way too many young Americans that don't understand the horrors of 9/11.
Let's talk about
Perhaps
that a little bit, the age, because the age in general, even with the war that's going on now, is a big story about what's happening with all the protests and how old people are protesting the college campuses and all the rest. We have a pie chart, I think, that'll show the age of, people and how it relates to 9/11. This is important, I think. I'm 46, so I was 24 on September 11th of 2001. I was a local radio reporter at the time. I covered 9/11. I covered the attacks, the aftermath. I have a certain perspective on it. You have a certain perspective on it.
Sure.
There's a lot of people who were born after 9/11. And as you said, not all of them have this perspective where they would look at it and take this course of action. But it does bring up this wider question of what's going on right now with young people and how they feel about their own country. I mean, we see it in the protests, too. I mean, what is it? What's going on here with age?
This boomer will be back in a moment to discuss the madness with the Zoomers. Welcome back. I'm excited to announce that One Nation has now moved to a weekly show, and as such, we have just launched our very own podcast. So you can catch every episode on the go. Just search One Nation with Dr. Jake Jacobs on your favorite platform, including Apple and Spotify, and give us a follow. New episodes are posted every Friday, and if you're in the mood, please consider leaving us a coveted 5-star review. All right, let's get back to it. Now you'll notice in that news broadcast, and it said something to this effect: what's going on with age? Well, specifically with the Zoomers. Now, I call Generation Z Zoomers. I've been doing it for a long time because they were the students at the end of my teaching career. They would call me, of course, okay, boomer, and they picked on me as being an old fuddy-dud boomer, this type of thing. And I'm still working with the Zoomers. Soon I'm on my way to Santa Barbara, California to speak at a YAF conference on escaping from communism. And I love working with the Zoomers. There are still, thankfully, we still have a significant number of the Zoomer generation who have been raised properly by their parents. They've been taught American history, world history. They've been taught theology, Christianity, and they understand right from wrong. Their minds haven't been poisoned by this bizarre wokeism that permeates the United States. Now, Zoomers. Let's kind of define a little bit the numbers when it comes to the various generations. My generation, we were born right after World War II, the boomer generation, 1946 to 1964. Generation X, that was born 1965 to 1980. Generation M, or the millennials, 1981 to 1996. That would include my son Joseph and my daughter Anastasia. Generation Z, or the Zoomers, 1997 to 2012. And the latest generation is Generation Alpha, 2012 till present. Now, since 1977, I've worked very hard. I've made it my number one priority to teach my students to learn, to discern, to trust, but verify, to study and learn in historical context. I know I'm biased because I was a history teacher, an American history, world history teacher for many, many years, and still do fly around the country and teach on historical topics to college age and high school students. And it's so important for us to understand that if we don't understand what has happened in the past, we'll be condemned to repeat the same major mistakes by major leaders like Neville Chamberlain and other presidents like Jimmy Carter and others who screwed up when they had a weak understanding of things that have gone back in the past. I can still remember in 2012 when I defended Governor Scott Walker and how many of my colleagues at where I taught attacked me. One of my colleagues was an older millennial, and he proudly said to me one day, coming in the room attacking me for daring to defend Governor Walker, he says, Jake, you think you know so much, but you teach the kids lies. Well, I get my information and the news that I get from Comedy Central. And I couldn't help but just start laughing, thinking, you got to be kidding me. You're getting your news and your information about politics and about life and about history from Comedy Central? No wonder he was such a fool. Now, I know millennials and Zoomers, they love to use that phrase, okay, boomer, because we're old fuddy-duds. We have our inhalers, and probably like me, they got 2 new hips and 2 shoulder surgeries and a knee surgery, and we're old-fashioned, and we have a stupid, narrow worldview. Probably the only thing I would defend myself on is my worldview comes from the Judeo-Christian worldview. And it's not an error. It speaks absolute truth. It speaks the truth of the Declaration of Independence that says our Creator is the source of life and liberty, and He's also called in the last paragraph the supreme judge of the world and divine providence. I'll put my life, my soul, on those truths which come from the founders of this nation and from the Holy Scriptures. But now, millennials, okay, Zoomers, I want to take you down the historical memory lane to a generation before the old fuddy-duddy baby boomers like myself. It was Tom Brokaw from NBC News. He was a news anchor who declared that the World War II generation was the greatest generation, and there's no doubt about it. Now, when I think of those snowflake Zoomers pontificating from their safe spaces on TikTok and other social media platforms, I literally get sick inside. When I think of what real men did at the ages of, in some cases, 17. My dad went in at 17. It's why I wear the ring, 1944. He went in at 17, 1943, but went to fight the Japanese, the Imperial Japanese, at the age of 18 in 1944. Many of those men were 18, 19, 20 years old. When you think of the liberation of France on June 6, 1944, when they landed at Normandy, France, they were liberators. They liberated France and Europe from National Socialism, from Nazism. I want you to take just a quick look at those young men, 18, 19, 20 years old. Can you imagine what it would be like to be on those landing craft heading towards Normandy, France, knowing that the moment those doors were opened, the Nazis up above in Normandy, France, would be shooting a blanket of bullets and bombs upon you? Let's look at this scene from Saving Private Ryan. You see in that scene, there's the sand that's at Normandy, France, and I showed that film in London. Then the following day, I took my students across the English Channel, and we landed in Normandy, and we came up to below the graveyard. There's 10,000 crosses and stars of David above, and we were on that sand, and one of my students, she could see me just very pensive looking down that beach, and I was imagining that, back then this would have been 20 years ago, so that would have been 50 years after the invasion of France, D-Day. I imagined the sand just being soaked with the blood of those young men. If that doesn't move your heart to recognize and understand the ultimate sacrifice given, and when we get insulted by these professors, these woke professors, saying that America is a nation of oppression, when so many of our young people, hundreds of thousands of young Americans, died to liberate and to bring freedom to Europe, to get rid of National Socialism, to stop Soviet socialism from taking over all of Europe, to get rid of Imperial Japanese in the Pacific Theater. And men like my father and others were there, giving of their time and their psyche, and in many cases their lives. Norman Rockwell is known for many of his great pictures of World War II, Christmas time, etc. One of my all-time favorites is this picture. It's from November 27th, 1943. And it shows a young lady, an Italian lady, and she's praying. And on her knees, you can see a canister. It's from a GI's food rations. And inside that container, it's like a cooking container that the GIs would use, you can see there's food. and she's praying, and over her shoulders is a master sergeant from the U.S. Army, his jacket that's wrapped around her to give her warmth. And above the master sergeant insignia is Old Glory, the 48 stars of the United States of America. To me, that symbolizes the United States of America at its finest, liberators, protectors, providers of life and liberty. There's another classic Norman Rockwell painting from October 13th, 1945. And in this picture, you see a young man has come home from the Pacific Theater from Japan. He's got a Japanese flag in his hand, and there's young kids around him. And there's it looks like a postman and a taxi driver and a mechanic and young kids. And they're all surrounding him in a garage, and he's telling the story. He's telling the story of Americans that fought, that raised the flag at Iwo Jima, that died at Okinawa, that died at Guam and Guadalcanal and Battle of Midway, and that came home, like my dad who came home in February of 1946. Rarely told the story, but once in a while, with his friends who were in the Battle of the Bulge, would tell my generation, the boomers, of what it was like. That generation of young men, in some cases young women, who gave, who served the country, who loved this republic, who loved America, our republic under God. We need to understand a very sobering reality, people. I know, sometimes you think you can sit around like John Lennon, when he says in his song, Imagine, that, we can just wish that there's no war. I know that we think we can somehow sing Kumbaya and there's just going to be peace on earth and good war and goodwill towards men. Peace doesn't happen that way, people. There have always been and always will be evil, nefarious people and philosophies and worldviews that want to destroy, murder, and control the world. These people are demonic masters of deceit, and they will lie, cheat, distort, pervert reality, truth, to achieve their ultimate goal of conquest and victory. Let me give you just one quick example. On September 1st, 1939, when the National Socialists, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland, starting World War II, listen to what they said on how they started the war. Here goes.
On the 1st of September 1939, German forces invaded Poland in a move that was to trigger the Second World War. During the night of the 31st of August, Nazi SS troops dressed themselves in Polish uniforms and staged an attack on the Gleiwitz radio tower in Upper Silesia. This false flag operation was part of a wider series of staged attacks on Germans and German property called Operation Himmler that was designed to make it appear as if Poland was exercising aggression against Germany. Just hours after the Gleiwitz incident, at 4:45 a.m. on the 1st of September, the first of approximately 1.5 million German troops launched their attack on Poland.
See that? World War II was started with deception, with lies, with perversion, with propaganda. This is the way it goes. War is deception. The militant Muslims, they live within a world of maximum deception and deceit and perversion. And we hear this stupid thinking, these stupid questions. We must hear Hitler's side of the story. There's always two sides of the story. There's not always two sides of the story. You got to be kidding me. There's no reasoning with Nazis. There's no reasoning with a side that wants you dead. Now today, I'm not surprised by the stupid snowflake woke world declaring we must listen to the side of Hamas and Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah. But when those who should know better, when individuals within our camp, within the conservative camp, when they sit there and they say that people like Dr. Jake Jacobs and Mark Levin and Dan Bongino, we're just too emotional about Israel and about the Jews, that we need to listen to the other side of the story. I'm profoundly concerned by what I call hyper-libertarianism and isolationism. We had isolationism before World War II. They wouldn't listen to Winston Churchill. They wouldn't listen to the individuals who understood the nefarious nature of National Socialism. And they laughed at us. And they laughed at those who would say we need to be prepared and understand the nature of the enemy. They don't understand that the world from time immemorial has hated the Jews, have hated the Judeo-Christian worldview, and they want to destroy Christian civilization. Look at this great quote from Winston Churchill when he's getting ready for the Battle of England. The Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the future of Christian civilization. David Horowitz, a former Marxist who is now an adherent to a conservative Judaism, has written an excellent book called Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. That's the bottom line, people. We are in a war to destroy Christian America, and many people here, they say, what does Israel have to do with America? Jake, you're getting too much. You're spending too much time on Israel, too emotional about Israel. Oh, Jake, you should be talking about the border. I have done program upon program on the border. I've been in the border this year. I was there the year before. I've seen I've seen the cartel. They're just like Hamas, firsthand. So nobody can say to me that I haven't been talking about Biden's disaster on the southern border and all the fentanyl, drug, sex trafficking, and terrorists that are coming through the southern border. But you can be passionate and teaching about two issues at the same time. So it's individuals like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, if you're listening, I admire much of what you have to say. I mean, recently you guys have been taking some anti-Semitic stances that concern me. Tucker, I'm not saying you're anti-Semitic. I have Jewish friends of mine who are good friends of yours. And they tell me that you're not, but you're working with individuals, you're interviewing individuals that are asking the question that somehow Hamas side should be understood. Are you kidding me? Hamas are Nazis. They want to exterminate and annihilate the Jewish people, not just in Israel, but around the world. Candace Owen, what has happened? You used to be a brave Patrick Henry of liberty. I saw you before Congress standing up to them, telling them in no uncertain terms that they were lying. But somewhere along the way, you've gone astray. Israel is not an apartheid state that reminds you of the segregated democratic South. And there are no buts and howevers with Hamas, Hezbollah, and Islamic Jihad when it comes to Jews, Israel, and Christian civilization. This, by the way, as we approach now Hanukkah and the Christmas holiday season, I've got to show you this. Look at this from Bethlehem, Beit Lechem. It's where Jesus Christ, the Jew, was born. In Hebrew, it means the house of bread. It's the house of King David, the shield, the Star of David, the Magen David, the symbol, the flag of Israel. Look at this. Jewish birthplace removes all Christmas decorations in honor of Hamas martyrs. Are you kidding me? This is the insanity of what leftism, wokeism has done. It's perverted the minds of our young people from Columbia to Berkeley to Madison and around the country to Sydney, Australia to London, England, Brussels in Europe and Paris in Europe, etc., etc. Hanukkah is the celebration of the light of Judaism, religious freedom. Christmas is the birth of the Jew, the Rabbi Yeshua, Jesus. Bethlehem is now controlled by the Palestinians. I've been in Palestine. I've seen what they've done. They've destroyed much of it. Now is the time for us to pray for peace on earth and goodwill towards men. But let us also be aware of those like King Herod who would slaughter our children and destroy our faith. So until we meet again, God bless, Godspeed.